Okay, I'm Raquel Fernando, the Managing Director for Triage, Sri Lanka. In the session here, we have Dr. Sunil Diamis. He is the Additional Secretary to the Ministry of Health. So he'll be, I guess, chairing today's conference call. And surrounding him are his colleagues who are the
Professor Manoj Veer Singh. I'm from the Faculty of Medicine, Colombo. My area is public health.
I'm Dr. Sudat Samaravira. I'm the Chief Epidemiologist of the Epidemiology Unit of Ministry of Health.
And their consultant will be joined very soon. They are on the way, and we have some other medical officers and senior registrars who are also handling this COVID epidemic, so that we can start the interaction. Yeah. So that could you start with the epidemiological part?
Actually, that is a COVID-19 that was the first case of COVID-19 on 27th of January, and after 6 weeks only that we got the second case. That is after the 237 cases, COVID-19 confirmed cases that we diagnosed up to yesterday, and out of that 37 cases are who have returned from the overseas and quarantined at quarantine centers. So because of that, they didn't have any chance of contaminating the community. But the majority are that who had returned from the overseas and went in the community and was quarantining in the community with the risk of that spreading the disease to others. And there are some cases that is who had the primary contacts of these people, as well as that that is the overall that picture. That in addition to that up to now that 63 cases recovered from and 7 cases dead. So that is the brief overview of our that cases. And the main high risk that we could see that the hotspots or the most dense is in the western province. That is the main province of the country, where the capital city is situated, and also the adjoining one district also getting high number of cases. In addition to that, 2 districts showed the higher number of cases just because single clusters that we reported in those 2 districts. So what we have done for the control is that once initially once this threat came, we identified several hospitals with isolation facilities. If a person comes with the suspected symptoms of COVID, they were admitted to these isolation facilities, and we did PCR testing for these people to detect the cases. If the person becomes positive or diagnosed as COVID-19, that immediately that we interviewed him or her, and then identified all the close contacts, and they were quarantined. We did 2 types of quarantining. That one thing is that quarantining at their own residences, so that we quarantine them at a place that at a quarantine center, depending on their socioeconomic status and also their behaviors and the ability to quarantine them or ability or not to quarantine at home. And then that all this that at the beginning that what we did is that if somebody who quarantine developed symptoms, that we that did the PCR testing, but lately that what we are doing now is that all the people who are having primary contact, that we do PCR testing at towards the end of the 2 weeks of quarantining period. So likewise that we could identify a lot of cases that is lately that who are asymptomatic, but is having showing that positive to PCR testing. So that with these measures that we could control that disease to this level to have only 237, and with the evidence that we can't see that there are no solid evidence that there is a community transmission at the moment. We believe that this disease is restricted to family clusters.
Can you continue? Yeah.
Yes, okay. I think our chief epidemiologist, Dr. Sudath, have given a basic understanding of what's happening. Therefore, if I just summarize first, the cases that we have seen in Sri Lanka up to now, which is 237 cases, can be categorized basically into three. First group is those who have returned from overseas, who have contracted disease from overseas when they arrive. Second one is that those who are very close family members or close associates of these overseas returnees. This is the second group. And if I go to the third group, are the extended contacts of these. Which means, up to now, which we find is all those who have been diagnosed at the moment have a direct relationship to an index case who is returning from overseas or a very close associated person with a returning or a link to overseas. So in that case, we have not found people who have got this disease from the community or the greater community. That is why we have actually seen a cluster epidemic in Sri Lanka as per today. So that is a unique feature, I think, that we see when we are looking at the literature across the globe, that such a cluster epidemic exists in only very few places. Next issue that I want to highlight on the epidemiological and the prevention part is the public health response in Sri Lanka is also a bit unique. If you look at when we have started our prevention program, we started even before the first case was diagnosed in early January. So the epidemiological unit, Ministry of Health, they have started to look at this and to start to mitigate the issues that would come from outside due to imported cases even before we have detected the first case in the country. So these two features I personally feel are unique to Sri Lankan context. And additionally, what we see is now because we have stopped or closed the airports almost now over 3.5 weeks. So what we see now is we have stopped any new cases coming in, and we are now looking at what's happening inside the country with the identified clusters. Therefore, there is a very systematic program at the moment in the country to make sure these clusters remain within the clusters, and as far as possible to contain these clusters only to immediate contacts of an index case, and not at least to spread those cases into the general community. And these are the things that I would like to highlight from the epidemiological side, from the Sri Lankan point of view. If I to tell few other factors here, based on this cluster behavior of this epidemic, actually we were able to do mathematical modeling to predict how these clusters would behave and how would the case load, particularly active case load, would be seen for the next couple of weeks. We are really happy to see that the predictions that we have done is quite low numbers for the next 2 weeks at least, because the cluster control is in force. When the clusters are being controlled heavily, then we do not see large amount of cases coming in. And one other thing which I have to tell about the active cases, we find that contrary to some of the findings that we see in the literature, particularly in some of the early papers which came from different areas in China, Italy, and other places, the recovery time of our patients in the hospitals is fairly quick. It's more or less within 2 weeks in average, compared to 3 weeks plus in most other places. So in that case, we have an additional support or a positive feature, because the active cases that we have to treat care in our institution are coming to a bit of a flat, because in the curve, because there are many people who are getting cured and getting out of the hospital. So the actual burden to the health system up to now is being in a controlled manner. So these are the features that I personally would say are very quick and very good things in Sri Lanka. And if you look at the R naught or the basic reproductive numbers in our cluster epidemic, what we see is somewhere around 1.2 to 1.3 at the moment, which is actually high when we are looking at communicable disease, but it's relatively low compared with many other countries in the West that we are seeing at the moment. Thank you.
Right. Now we have Dr. Ananda Vijay Vikrama, who is the chief physician of the National Infectious Disease Hospital, so that he has experience in managing so much of almost all COVID-19 patients, and so therefore I would now Ananda will join us.
Certain policy of the Ministry of Health we can handle them, because still the case numbers are low. These two, for two reasons we are doing this. The main reason is to reduce or minimize the transmission from these patients. So they are to develop any complication, it's early and out of the county, there are three hospitals with these patients. Most of these patients are admitted on the latter 2 weeks, most of the detected patients are asymptomatic. However, during the initial part, the testing was done on symptomatic patients, especially returnees from Italy, Korea, and UK. But later, we started doing patients, started doing testing on quarantine the people who are contact. So, this cases.
I'm sorry, Doctor, we can't hear you very clearly. A little bit closer.
So you might have to go closer to the mic.
Can you hear me now? Better?
Right now it's okay.
So, what I was telling is, present the policy of the ministry and the government is to admit all the positive cases. There are many of them are symptomatic, but for the latter part, we were getting a lot of asymptomatic contacts. There are two reasons for this policy. Firstly, we can do that because the numbers are still low. First reason is to minimize the spread from these positive people. The second thing is, if they develop any complications, to detect those early and to treat. So we have been admitting all these patients, 230 odd patients were admitted to 3 identified institutions in the country. Of course, if we get more patients, we will have to change this strategy. Over the first month, we were getting almost all the symptomatic patients. But towards the latter 2 weeks, we were mostly getting asymptomatic contacts who were tested positive. Out of all these 140 patients admitted to the hospital where I work. All these patients, there were 7 deaths. There were 12 ICU admissions and 12 ICU admissions and 7 deaths. Actually, out of these 7, 2 patients died soon after admitting to the hospital. And other 5 were ventilated for some time and then they succumbed to the illness. When we look at these patients, most of the 2/3 of these patients are males, 1/3 is female, and the majority of patients were between 35 to 55 years of age. There were 14 children. There were 12 or 14 children, less than 15 years, less than adults. Children did not have any complications. Even adults, we had to admit 11 or 12 patients to the ICU. The reason for admission to the ICU was hypoxia and respiratory distress. Of these, we had to ventilate 4 patients. 2 patients, as I said earlier, 2 patients died on admission. Therefore, ventilated for several days. We, as initially, when we started getting these cases, based on some literature we had from China, we started these patients on hydroxychloroquine chloroquine.
Then only that we diagnose these people. And as I told earlier, that when there is for the contacts, initially we tested only that if they develop symptoms suspected of COVID, or there's a possibility that these people can get the COVID. For example, if there's a 3 or 4 member of family, after 2-3 people are getting the disease, then we tested all other people also in the same family. Likewise, we diagnosed. But lately that we found that even that this asymptomatic can have the disease, that they can that have the viral infection. So because of that, now what we are doing is that all the contacts, the primary contacts, that we are doing the testing. And as that we are not getting now the clinical cases, now we are relaxing and we are expanding our that testing strategies to several group of people. For example, that one thing is that all the contacts. Then that in addition to that is the high incident districts. When the people come into the hospital with influenza-like illness, all these people will be getting tested for the COVID-19, as well as in the community that we are as well as all the severe acute respiratory illness, the SARI cases that we are doing this testing, and also that if there is an unexplained death due to pneumonia or admission or in the ward or even in the community, that we will be testing postmortem samples that will be taken for this testing. And also that we are doing some community level in these clusters that we are going to these clusters, and some of the people in this cluster that who don't have the direct contact also, that we are testing to ensure that there is no community transmission, that we started that also. Likewise, that we are that in addition to all the healthcare workers that is exposed to had the risk exposure to COVID-19 patient, also we are testing. And also if the clinician that thinks that involved patient that needs as suspicious of COVID-19, the clinician decides that we do that for those also the testing. And the antibody testing that we didn't have a good validated test, the antibody test, and we don't use that antibodies testing or rapid diagnostic testing as diagnostic method for the active case finding this epidemic.
Thank you. I am Dr. Sunil again. I want to clarify and get your opinion about certain things. So after, now the basically we are handling successfully the COVID epidemic. So therefore, there is a tendency of the government and the policymakers to open the economic sphere of the country, so that we have to shift from the curfew and other sanctions and all. So I want to know, I would rather like to happy to know um, what were the strategies adopted by you in order to exit from the sanctions and all. One. And secondly, what were the special facilities required in management of the COVID infected patients? ICU facilities, so HDU, what are the special requirements you had to have? And also the post, the discharge. After the discharge, what were the measures you have taken to follow up the patients, follow up the people, ex-patients in the community level? And lastly, I think the epidemiologist should ask this question: what is the possibility of having reinfection? So these are the things I would rather like to know from your experience. Right. It's up to you.
Sorry, can I understand that the question is basically about what the exit strategies are to reopen the economy now that you've been quite successful with the original onset of patients? Is that right?
Yeah, I think typing this out will probably take too long. So I think to simplify the question, it's simply, now that the government policies may change to open up the economies, the health officials would need to essentially ease up on the strict controls for social distancing. So similarly in China, what are the measures taken in order to both facilitate more economic activity, but still maintain controls in terms of social distancing?
If I understand it correctly, you may ask whether or not it is possible to open the economic. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Essentially, is it possible to have both, to be able to
Social life also.
Is it possible to essentially stimulate economic activity but still have social distancing control?
Yes. Okay. I will take this question. Do you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So now I think Wuhan is one of the safest places in China, probably in the world, because we don't have any import cases diagnosed of COVID-19. We don't have a new case in Wuhan because of the lockdown and the long period of lockdown of our city, and we have no new case now. So now the city is reopened and our economic is resumed. So we can go outside, we can do shopping, and the workers can go back to their factory. So gradually situation is getting normal in Wuhan now. And how do we control the reoccurrence of this disease? So everybody should have a remark in his eye, in his cell phone, the mobile phone, each one have one, and then it shows the green mark, red mark. If it shows green mark, that means you are normal. If there's a red mark, that means you are not normal. And the people with the red mark, it should be isolated, whether either in home or in the hospital or in the hotel. Mostly this patient feel, and if this patient still have various tests positive, most of these patients is isolated in the hotel until the RNA test negative. This is our procedure and this is our policy to reopen the city.
No.
So
that
how they identify whether or not the patient with the granted green or red mark? The first, the healthcare workers the frontline healthcare workers, if they are off work, they should quarantine for 2 weeks. Then during this period, they do have the test. If test active, no symptom, then the health workers were granted green mark. If there's a patient, the patient at birth is marked as red. And then if you test twice negative and quarantined after discharge for 2 weeks, then you will be granted as green mark. So this is our policy and strategy to control the spreading of the disease.
Can I just ask you, what I understand in Wuhan, you were looking at individuals. Wuhan, what I understand is that you were looking at individuals and giving them a risk from red to green and getting them to quarantine, testing, and then if they are green, that you release them for general life activities.
Sorry, can I just repeat? So you just said that what you understand is that for the individuals in Wuhan, you are looking at individuals and then you give them a marker that starts with red if they're patients or if they're healthcare workers, and then it turns to green, and then you put them in quarantine and test, and then only if it's okay, you release them. Sorry, so what was the question?
Yeah, the question is that what I want to ask is, so you have been working on an individual level strategy of releasing and making the economic work.
Yes,
It's
so yes, individual.
Based strategy, right?
Yes, everybody should have a mark. Green mark.
Yeah.
He can allowed go inside. He can take the public transportation. He can go shopping. He can go to the hospital. He can go anywhere. But if the red card, the patient or the red card, the red mark, the person were allowed go anywhere. He should stay at home, quarantined until his test negative.
Yes, so I think the answer is that it's individual. 张教授他想问的就是说，我们在国内管控的是在个别人这样，而不是说他们说不是说一个人群去管控的。
All the citizens in Wuhan should have the mark. All.
Yeah, so it's individual. Every person needs to certify.
Does that mean if you look at the total population of Wuhan or the Hubei province, have you tested each and every person?
Yes.
Of place to give that mark?
We don't test every person, but you see, if there's a person, no symptom, no transmitted to the others, we take this person as normal. But we don't test any person. We just test patient, or we just test the people with high risk. If there's health workers, this is a high risk. And if there's a patient, if there's a relative of this patient, even if there is a normal guy, he contact with the new diagnosed patient, this guy should be taken as a red mark. So
just to one question.
Vaccine, you have to screen. The screen, that means you have leave the message to the driver. You are taking his bus. Then if there's anyone infected, it very quickly trace you. Where are you? Then identify the infected cases. Then if there's a green mark, it will be changed to red mark. And then this person should be quarantined.
Just to clarify something you said so everyone understands. Even the people who are not tested and given a green mark, it's only qualified after 14 days of evaluating them, correct?
Yes.
And now some of the factories, so you have opened up all factories in the industrial side of the Wuhan city. Do you maintain any procedure within the factories
when you open it for the started the industries?
翻译一下，你那个听得不太清楚。
对，他说现在已经开放了，就所有的工厂。那开放的时候，就是在工厂里面有没有维持任何的，比方说就是要检测那个体温啊之类的，有什么措施
Yes, this
So-
is very good question. In my hospital, we have to report every day of our symptom and our temperature. We have to report through the internet.
So I think the answer is that, yeah. So the answer is that for many companies, employees are required to self-report, and I think this is the same, for example, for all Alibaba employees. We have to fill in a questionnaire every day about our health situation
Yes,
to
That's
confirm
why-
if you have any symptoms or you have been in contact with anybody. So there is a declaration.
that's what we are doing.
Can I ask a follow-up question from your earlier answer of green to red markers given to people? We have seen
公共的，哎，没听懂，
Yes.
公共的。
here,
先听他说完，对。Sorry, please go ahead.
we have seen case reports across in China and other places that there are some people without symptoms but still could be positive for real-time PCR test as COVID. So how did you manage that if you are not testing everyone?
Sorry, if you,
Yes,
can you
please
just
repeat it.
repeat? So I think you mean that we have seen cases in China where people are asymptomatic, is that right?
Yes.
But then they have done the testing and they are positive.
Yes.
And-
To clarify, I think, so in the policy taken in Wuhan is the fact that you're only testing people who have symptoms, and you're essentially green lighting people after 14 days who are asymptomatic, who have no symptoms.
That's right.
But the reality is that COVID has shown that people are still positive and asymptomatic. So what happens in those scenarios?
OK，所以他的意思是说，没有症状的人，我们是不是就不做测试了？就是说，因为他们已经看到案例，就是说有一些人是完全没有症状。那现在刚才他以为他听到我们说的是说，只有症状的人才会做检测。但是我理解，其实我们其实是如果你从问卷上面有问题的，也要做检测，对吧？
If there's someone come back from other side to Wuhan, back to work, they should have their swab test, throat swab test. If there's a negative, he will allow to work. If he is asymptomatic career, he should not allow to work. You know, if the workers or the staff back to work, they should first have their test. The test report shows negative, then he will be allowed to back to work. This is our strategy.
Yeah, so I think the answer is that we also test people who are coming back, for example, from other provinces.
Also test the asymptomatic persons. Yes.
Yes. So that's how they catch it. So if you have on your questionnaire, like for example, if they come back from a province other than Hubei or cross province, those people are tested as well, even though they show no symptoms.
Yes.
Nico, I think that the question wasn't particularly answered. So in reference to people in the province, yeah, so let's say you're talking about people within the province.
Yes.
Who either have a green or red light, yeah. Within the green, they get a green when they have show no symptoms and been clear for 14 days. But within those people who don't show symptoms, they could get a green, but they just could be asymptomatic people who are still potentially positive cases, correct?
Yes,
That's
but we catch them through the other way. So if you have been in close contact, so for example, if you've been on a bus and one of the people on the bus has been confirmed case, all those people will become red marker immediately and get tested. So that's how you weed it out slowly, because you're right. So if there's a bus driver has it, everybody on that bus, and they all get red markers and they all get tested. Even if they don't show anything, they still get quarantined for 14 days.
And you're tracing.
Unfortunately, we don't have a new case now.
Yeah.
So the asymptomatic career, in my opinion, is not a big issue.
Were you testing antibodies also or only PCR in this context?
Do you do antibody testing only, or do you do PCR testing as well?
We do both. We do both. Yeah.
If I may contribute, so this is Dr. Jude Jama is the consultant virologist, chief consultant virologist who had handled the virology part and the testing part laboratory.
He's the consultant virologist, right? I can hear. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I have been to your CDC 5 times last year also. We have actually tested something like asymptomatic from our laboratory 14, and the CT value is 34, 35, 36. And Ragama also tested very recently. So those who are asymptomatic contacts. So as we are agreeing with you also, asymptomatic so-called carriers are not a big thing, but definitely I think we have to trace them. So I just want to contribute from our own small cohort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So 那位医生他也确认了，他也是觉得就是应该问题不大的，他们也做了相应的这个结论。他去年去了中国的 CDC 5次，对。Okay, yes, thank you very much, Doctor.
Can I just ask one other query? Looking at the Wuhan experience that you had, when you are opening Wuhan, apart from economic activities, what time frame did you take to start schools, universities, and non-economic activities? Social and other non-economic activities. Was there a time frame?
OK，问题是说，除了就是开放经济的，就是上班啊那些之外，就其他的就是社交活动啊等等，有没有说这个时间期限有不同，或者允许就是说大家一起吃饭啊什么之类的？
The big gathering is not allowed. For example, you only buy your food outside of a restaurant rather than eating inside of the restaurant. Inside eating in the restaurant is not allowed. And for the school, so we recommend the student at high school back school first after May. So we ask the student, we allow the student back to school. And the agenda for this back in school, we have to wait to the other side of China because we don't want the student back to school earlier than the other side of China, other province in China. So but now the situation is allowed to do so, but we don't want to do first in whole China. We have to wait until the other province, for example, Beijing, Shanghai, and other places, the student back to school, and then Wuhan student were allowed back to school. This is our protocol.
Yeah. And can I have another? Initially also I have raised this issue. The after discharge, post discharge, and the reinfection. What was your experience in? How do you manage after discharge patients, or do you monitor them at home? What is the procedure?
The no return about this. Some people returned is not because he reinfected of the COVID-19. It's because the other infections. Some patients, the primary immunity is still very low because the impairment of the mucociliary system by this virus is severe. And recovery of the mucociliary system, I think, is take at least 2 months. So if the patient is discharged during this period, probably the patient may be contacted by the other infections. For example, pneumococcus infections, some other virus infections, even flu infections is reoccurred. So if the patient antibody is increased, that means the patient may not have the risk to reinfect this. It's because of the other infections. So-called community-acquired pneumonia is very common, not very common, but sometimes occurred in COVID-19 patient. And in the early stage, because the test is not sensitive, and the patient discharged and still test, repeat test showed positive. I think this is because of the false negative So now the situation is people getting experience about this. So this scenario is occurred very rare.
Treatment, what are the drugs you used and what drugs you think were successful?
So what treatment and what drugs were used and what do you think was successful?
Okay. I showed my slide. Okay.
Yes, please.
I'm very about why Europeans have such a high mortality. This might be different genome. You see, in Wuhan, this is the type B genome of the SARS coronavirus 2. And in the European, you see, this is type C and type A, especially in the United States, this is United States type A. So this might be have different virulent. This is one of the reasons why European and North America has such a high mortality. And so this is the quarantine procedures. I show you our strategy, how to treat the patient. My hypothesis. So for the common cold, there's a rhinovirus infection. Influenza is influenza virus A and B, C, and SARS, the first, MERS, probably this is the second, and this is the third. So for all of these respiratory virus infection is self-limited. That means within 2 weeks, antibodies were increased. You can see the rhinovirus, this is a common cold, you see. Day 4, you can see the units of obstruction of nose, and 2 weeks, you can see the nose is reopened. This is the publicated. So we have the innate immunity. So we have the external barriers with the mucociliary clearance. We have innate defense system. So the adaptive immunity built up is so-called reinforcement. So we need the reinforcement to against this new coronavirus. So this is innate immunity. See, this is so preprint publication. See, if the people with the BCG vaccination, so the case is the death is low, and if the areas, regions with low BCG vaccination, so they have high mortality. So this is may explain why Spain, the UK has a high mortality. And this is our case. You see, this case no finding in the X-ray in the CT scan, but this is our doctor, young doctor, 2 young doctor. Their vigilance to these infections is very high. They have the bad symptom, mild symptom, and they have their RNA test and showed positive. And they treat with Abidor. I don't know when we know that this medicine is available in Sri Lanka, but it's available in China and Russia as well. So we recommend these 2 young doctors take Abidor, both take Abidor. And this is the anti-influenza virus, and his selective index is much higher than for the coronavirus, much higher than it for the influenza virus. So we also think for this kind of infections like the influenza pneumonia, so the mucociliary system impairment is very high. So the CAP, community acquired pneumonia, will occur soon after. So we recommend moxifloxacin. This is the respiratory quinolone, both taken Abidor and moxifloxacin. And you can see within 5 days, no pulmonary abnormalities occurred. This virus test negative twice. So this case is now it's quite normal. So within 5 days, both were cured. You can see the similar case without any treatment. This is the Chinese arrived in Australia and he diagnosed the COVID-19, and it can show his nasopharyngeal swab and the sputum and feces positive virus test. And you can see after this, just after 1 week, you can see it IgG is increased, and 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and IgG is increased remarkably. So this is a case without any treatment, simultaneously relieved. This is case, that means without any treatment, the patient were cured by himself. This is so-called self-limited disease. And this is another case. We see this is a little bit old, and this is our colleague. And you can see at the first onset of symptoms, there are not very much inflammatory response. But gradually, it's 1 week later, you can see that the inflammatory response is so high, as indicated by the C-reactive protein. And the lymphocyte, you can, at first is reduced and then increased. So that means inflammatory stone doesn't do any harm. This patient at this stage is quite well. And gradually, 2 weeks later, you can see CRP is reduced, inflammatory response relieved, and the lymphocyte is here in the normal range. And 1 month later, you can see his antibody increased. Now, this patient is quite well. So we prohibited to use corticosteroid, prohibited, even in this stage. This is a very severe inflammatory response, but even at this stage, we don't allow to use any immunity inhibitors, corticosteroid, intravenous immunoglobulin, and interleukin-6 inhibitor. We don't allow to use it because we need time to build up the adaptive immunity. So this is the case. We saved his life. We don't allow the people to inhibit the patient immunity. So we say sepsis is systemic response plus organ failure. So if only sepsis, if only systemic response, doesn't mean the patient have organ failure. This is not only this. It doesn't mean this patient has sepsis. So we don't need to control this one. And you see, at first stage, people say lapinovir and ritonavir has some effect on this coronavirus infection. And you can see this is natural procedure, natural process of the disease. You can see very low, this decrease without any interference by this treatment. So I think this simultaneous decrease are very low. And you can see this similar picture you can also see in German study. This is a similar picture. And the positive SARS coronavirus 2 sometimes is delayed. It's a little bit later to become negative, but this is the upper airway, this is the stool. This means we have to control the patient, the fees. The fees probably may cause reinfection, but the culture of the virus in the stool is always negative. So this is so we don't worry about much. Don't need to worry about much the stool infection because probably the virus is died through the digestive system. So this is SARS. The first, you can see 2 weeks, so antibody increased. Even for the asymptomatic patient, so that's what we said. We don't need to worry about it. Gradually, the patient antibody will increased. So this is a SARS experience for SARS. And the MERS, similar to you can say severe case, it takes 3 weeks, and for the mild case, it takes 2 weeks to get the coronavirus active test. And the MERS is similar. People you can also see. So the respiratory virus has similar procedure, same course of disease. So you don't worry about that. So this is the antibody for is research from Hong Kong. You can see the coronavirus 2. You can see it's also similar picture as SARS first, as MERS. So antibody, this is so-called adaptive immunity built up. So it takes 2 or 3 weeks. So our respiratory system is not clean. So this is the recent publication showed even the lower respiratory tract, we have bacteria colonized. This is bacteria colonized. If there's COPD, if there's severe COPD, you can see Haemophilus, Streptococcus, Moraxilla catarrhalis, or even Streptococcus aureus, all colonized in the airway. That's why we said community-acquired pneumonia is likely occurred after coronavirus infection, this bacterial co-infection. If you look back at the research about influenza viral pneumonia, you can see in 100 years ago, you can see the autopsy. More than 8,000 autopsies showed nearly all the deaths co-infected bacterial infection. So it indicate bacterial infections very easily occurred. So you can see this is the era of antibiotics. You can see 10 years ago, you can see up to more than 50% of the patient died patient have the bacterial co-infection. So you couldn't neglect these co-infections. You have to pay attention to these infections. So this is not purely viral infection, it's bacterial infections. So for pandemic in last century of influenza, you can see Streptococcus pneumonia and Staphylococcus aureus all both play a very important in this co-infection. So in instances like this, if there's an exuded occupied lumen of the bronchial and the damage of the epithelial, that means mucociliary damage, and the here provided for the bacterial growth is very important. So that's why bacterial co-infection easily occur.
Doctor, sorry to interrupt. Sorry. The doctors here have another appointment that they can be one or two last questions that they would like to be answered. And then I will share, if you can share this presentation with me, I will share it with the Ministry of Health officials here as well.
So you can see, this is a mechanism.
Ask you, was there any place for antibody testing within your control program that you had in Wuhan? Any place for the antibody test within your control program in Wuhan for COVID-19?
The last part you said, is there a place for antibody testing in your control?
Okay. No, you have successfully controlled COVID-19 in Wuhan. We would like to know, was there any place for antibody testing in this control program?
Was there any place for antibody testing in this control program? Is that right?
Yeah, yes. Did they use it?
Did you do antibody testing?
Yes, we do.
They do both tests.
We do the RT-PCR test. We do antibody test. We do both.
What is the interpretation of antibody results?
In what sort of patients you did and what's the type of antibody?
So I think all patients we do antibody testing and the RT-PCR. So they always get both tests.
We do both.
ELISA testing or rapid testing. What is the antibody type that you use? Is it immunochromatographic, like just like a rapid test, or ELISA? Because ELISA tests are more superior and highly specific.
Nicole, did you hear that?
Yes, I think you were saying which antibody test you take, right? Is it the ELISA test or what was the other one?
Mostly they do ELISA. Yeah.
ELISA test, okay, yeah.
On which day they do? On which day do you do?
On which day?
Pardon?
On which day do you do the test? Is that right?
This test for every patient.
That's true, but what is the best day?
Best
Day
day.
7, day 10, Manita, say suppose the patient illness. Which day of the illness is the ideal time to do antibody?
Which day of the illness? 就测试最好的时间是什么？就说哪一天，它就是从病发开始哪一天。
The best time, if you want to do the single time, once, I think is 3 weeks later after onset of symptom.
Really?
3 weeks later after onset of the symptom.
So, what was your intention of doing the antibody test? Because you have already diagnosed them by a real-time PCR.
So what was your intention of doing antibody test after 3 weeks?
就说都已经确认这个人确诊了，所以就是说为什么是3周之后再做一次呢？
We want to know whether we know that this patient have the adaptive immunity. If the patient have the adaptive immunity, that means the patient may know have the so-called coronavirus infection again.
Okay.
So the America recommended if the patient has IgG positive, if he has, he could be recommended to the front line against the coronavirus.
One last, did you answer your question on the Medicaid? But I want to clarify one thing. Have you used antibody testing for screening of people?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do this.
On what? Which kind of patient? What kind of patient? What kind of people? People. No, other than the patient suspected, do you do in the community?
Yeah.
OK， 就除了就是有疑患的这些，就是有可疑的病例，就是平时就是会不会抓，就是说社区里面的人去做，就 random 做。
Yes, we recommend people to do so, but this is paid by themselves rather than by the government. So we recommend people to do so. Many people want to do this because they want to for sure whether or not he got infected. Some patients asymptomatic infected, So now he come back to the society and he wants to test his blood whether or not he has an antibody. So it's very interesting. Many people infected without knowing about this. So their antibody increased, showing he was infected. This is interesting.
Can I ask just a final question? So
yes.
you have now opened up Wuhan.
Yes. Open up the Wuhan.
Yes.
The people worry about us. We worry about the others entering in Wuhan. The others always worry us. Go outside of Wuhan. This is a so-called worrisome isolation.
Yes, the question is, can you now apply the same measures of physical distancing in your public transport and other places after opening up?
OK，so 他的问题是说，现在开放经济了，是不是还可以维持，就是说这个 social distancing，就是比方说上巴士，对吧？还要保持距离这些东西怎么样操作？就这些措施现在还能做吗
？We recommend the people to do so, to keep distance, to wear face mask. So we recommend people to do so.
Face mask. Right. Okay.
Thank you.
One question regarding again from the biological side, laboratory side. Now sometimes the swab we run out of swab, and when we are doing it from the quarantine centers, what is the experience in Wuhan? We call positive rate of nasopharyngeal swab, oropharyngeal swab, and in case if you fail, what are the any other options?
Okay, I think 问题说 for swabbing, if you run out of swabs, right? So I think you're saying that there is a shortage, and what are the alternatives? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So because I think 他们想问就是武汉最前期的时候，可能就是物资不够的时候，他们说for the swabbing test they don't have enough. What are the alternatives for swabs?
什么？我没听清楚。
那个 swab test 对吧？就是说他们说他们可能不够，那就是说跟武汉就是最早的时候物资不够的紧张的时候，有没有任何的这个其他的方法或者 alternative 的 swab， 还是做其他的东西
At first, we don't have the RNA test. We use the CT scan. So CT scan is reliable to detect, to identify new cases.
And I can repeat it. So, other than
Does that answer your question?
Can you repeat your question, Jude?
Did he answer?
No.
From the laboratory, I saw that the HRCT scan is highly sensitive. Yes, that is there. In Italy also they have done.
Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you. Because we have a big problem in the sense some medical people misinterpret that the nasopharyngeal swab is only 70% sensitive, and I have a big problem in convincing them. One final question, if I must agree. So, how reliable is a nasopharyngeal swab and or because in Sri Lanka we use two swabs. How reliable is nasopharyngeal swab and oropharyngeal swab when you do it in the same procedure at once?
How reliable are nasopharyngeal swabs? Is that right? As compared,
Yeah.
Both and all together.
You have to sample more sampling. You know, we take the nasal secretion, we take the phlegm, we take the throat secretion as well. So if you put all together, the positive rate will increase. So never rely on one sample.
Did he answer your question? Have you used saliva for this?
sorry, we can't hear you quite clearly. Can you, if yeah.
Use saliva instead of nasopharyngeal swab at any time.
Can you use saliva instead of nasopharyngeal swab instead? 那么用口水口沫。张教授在吗？
在。
他说能不能用那个 saliva instead of nasopharyngeal swab at any time？
什么东西啊？
他说就说有没有情况下面是用口水那个去检测
？Yes, saliva.
Yeah,
yes.
Saliva.
Yeah. Yes, they Hong Kong they do this. They worry about spread of disease. They only use the saliva.
In Hong Kong, they use saliva.
Yeah. I don't think that is a reliable sample. We prefer to use the phlegm. Lower respiratory infection. So I recommend to do this with phlegm.
Yeah.
Filter.
Understood. So I think if you guys could hear clearly, so he does not recommend the use of saliva for the swabs.
Okay. I think that's the end of the question from our side, Nicole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You can email me the deck. I'll forward it to Dr. Alves, and then any follow-up questions, maybe over email, I'll drop your email.
Yes, and I mean, if there are any follow-up questions, you can also go onto the website that we have, and then that's also where you can find a lot of the other videos and like other more specific information.
Is this the Alibaba website?
Yes, it's the covid-19.alibabacloud.com website. We'll send it to you as well. We'll send you all of the information together.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you Alibaba Foundation also.
Thank you very much
for the
providing us RT-PCR. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. 谢谢张教授。
Okay. Thank you.
好，感谢。
It's in the presentation. I think it's the Wuhan University.
Yes. So just to provide some background, so Professor Zhang himself was a patient himself, so he is speaking from personal experience as well as he contracted COVID-19 during the course of his work. So he has a specific insight into the treatment of COVID. And we thank you very much as well for giving us this chance today to connect. Yes, and together we can fight this virus. So thank you very much for your time. 好，谢谢张教授。